I started electronic music probably at least 10, 12 years before Oxygene. At least 10 years before. I went into a music research center in Paris, the Groupe de Recherche Musicale, headed by Pierre Schaeffer and Pierre-Henri. And these and Pierre Schaeffer especially, and Stockhausen in Germany, are really the founders of electronic music, as we know. I mean, it's interesting to think that if rock and roll is born in the United States, in the US, it's a kind of ethnic music from America that invaded the world. I would say that electronic music is definitely born in Europe, and has nothing to do with jazz or blues or rock, and it's probably coming from our tradition of our heritage of classical music, this long instrumental piece. So I've always been, having had a classical background, I also played in the rock bands. And then for me, I always tried to, I was really interested to mix experimentation of sounds with a melodic approach of music and more pop approach, to say the truth. And I always consider that the melody is the most important thing in music, even if the beat is important. I mean, you can have music with melody only, but it's very difficult to have music that you can really enjoy if it's not on the dance floor just with a beat. So we need both, but actually I always consider that the melody is the most important thing. And then I wanted to create a bridge between this melodic approach of composition and the work on textures, sounds, and waveforms, really. I mean, the idea of a piece of music, which an album, because we're in vinyl days, right? And I was really thinking about the one piece, like one book or one movie with different chapters, with different parts. It's the reason why that Oxygene has no title. Each part is just part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And even at that moment, I thought that it could be quite exciting to think about sequels around this project. I always love sequels in literature, in movies, even in TV, and even for TV series, even if sometimes it doesn't work. It's very interesting to take time to explore the same kind of world. And it doesn't exist really in music, that. And I always thought it could be interesting for Oxygene to develop in time, maybe some other parts, what I've done until Oxygene 3 recently. And the idea was really also to try to create a music where we have not necessarily a singer or a beat up front, but where the groove should come from the texture, the melodies, the sequences. And also, it was in days where we had a kind of very dynamic and positive hope towards the future. I mean, we're all thinking that after year 2000, cars would fly and the social education system would be perfect. And we've been a bit disappointed, to say the least, after year 2000, because it didn't exist, it didn't happen. And then our vision after year 2000 became much darker towards future, towards the life, the future of the planet, and so on and so forth. And another aspect also of Oxygene was also this link with the title, with environment, with the outside world. It's the reason why that at very early stage I was very interested to try to perform my music outside also, because I always linked my music and electronic music in general with outdoor venues and outside. I would say that rock and punk or jazz are really made for clubs and to plug the energy on the electric plug. Where electronic music, I'm not talking about dance floor, because that's something else, but the electronic music in general is more made for outdoor venue and being shared by lots of people. It's the reason why I started to do this kind of concert outdoor, and I think it was quite premonitory when you are considering raves later on, or even festivals these days. I think it's linked to, it's almost in the DNA of electronic music. kind of having kind of big events, outdoor events.
The
community spirit, with community spirit. Even Oxygene has been rejected almost by all record companies, saying, I mean, what's this? This is not an album. There you have tracks of 10 minutes, 12 minutes, no single for the radio. You have no drums, no singer, and on top of it is French. So very little chance to have an interest from a major. And actually, a small independent label took it. And everything started with Radio 1, really. Radio 1 played one night the entire album. And I think it's happened only twice, one for Oxygene and one time for Dark Side of the Moon. And then it became an instant hit after that. It was a convergence of few individuals. I mean, one guy from at Polygram, because it was not still universal at that time, in Holland, became the head of Polygram in the UK, and he took this album from Holland and to London, and at the same time it became very successful in France, also in Germany, in Berlin. So it was a convergence of things that suddenly, you know, you do something, it's in phase with the audience, you don't know exactly why. And looking back, I think it's probably was carrying some link with science fiction, maybe, with also with a kind of different approach of sound, of music. It was totally different, and it's a risk. But sometimes you have things which are absolutely different from what you hear or what you watch, and suddenly it creates a shock. And it was, I mean, Oxygene has been released at the beginning of punk and disco. It was absolutely totally different, and I think it's also worked because of this, probably. One day I was walking on the Champs-Élysées with my publisher, and he had a small record shop in the Champs-Élysées, and we saw Elton John going out from the shop with 10 copies of Oxygene. And I remember my publisher said, you know, I think it's going to be a success. Actually, Oxygene 3 really is born from a track I did while I was recording Electronica, this massive project involving lots of people, lots of studios, lots of work in studios with different brilliant collaborators, and sometimes some songs we did. Yeah, I remember the one I've done with Air, or with Hans Zimmer, or with even Armin van Buuren. They were all probably among almost 100 tracks. So it was, Electronica has been a massive production, time-wise and in terms of means and instruments and studios. And the first Oxygene has been done in 6 weeks with 8 tracks and very limited equipment. And I said after Electronica, I had this need to explore a very minimalist approach of doing music. And I said, and when the record company last year said, you know, this is the 40th anniversary of Oxygene, what could we do? We could do a nice box set and all that. I said, it could be nice to use this as a pretext, as a deadline for me, to, after Electronica, to lock myself up in the studio for 6 weeks and just using 8 elements for each track, and doing it like, as we said, like we said very truly, with in days where after probably the last 10 years, we've all been in kind of zapping mode by going into YouTube and having and focusing on 1 minute or 2 minutes on anything. And I think now there is a need for all of us to go back to a different relationship with cultural content. You see, we are ready to spend an whole weekend hardly sleeping by watching 3 seasons of Game of Thrones or of House of Cards. That was not the case 15 years ago. And I think there is a need also in music. Even movies now are much longer than before. And sometimes it's boring, but sometimes it works. And for albums, I think there is a big tendency today, I mean, to have even, and especially in electronic music, to have longer tracks. Even in EDM, you have also longer tracks. And frankly, Oxygene 3 for me is like a 1 track of 40 minutes. with different parts, and that you can listen separately. But it's like a short audio movie where you can listen to it from A to Z. And the first Oxygène has this kind of very special touch of being actually dark and sunny. And what I did for this one is actually, I thought also this album like a vinyl with two sides. Side one should be maybe being more darker, and the second one being more sunny, more melodic and brighter. I would like to answer you everything and nothing. Everything, because the technology we have now, I mean, is a dream, can be a nightmare, because also the technology makes you think that there is no limit, and any art forms, any artist needs limitations and limits, and nothing, because I think that there is nothing new. It's not bad news, but there is nothing new in the life, the career of a musician, a filmmaker, a writer. I mean, if you take the Beatles, I mean, Quentin Tarantino, Kubrick, Vivaldi, or Goya, or Picasso, they're all saying the same thing during their whole lives. It's just a declination of the same world, the same universe. And actually, I am, and we all are, in constant quest for the ideal piece of music, the ideal movie, the ideal book that we'll probably never achieved. But it's this quest that makes you fresh, makes you stubborn, makes you going on and on, day after day, trying to get the ideal piece of music one day. And it's the reason why that every time I think the creative process for me is a mixture of frustration and hope. The frustration that I think it could have been better, what I've done, and the hope that next time it will be less worse, probably.